No one has taken the idea of musical cybernetics further than the German electronic band Kraftwerk. Other synthesists try to humanize their machines, or at least give lip service to the idea. But Kraftwerk's Ralf Hütter talks about a merger at the man-machine interface.
There's no way of going back now. For us, we are completely interfaced, so to speak, with our music machines. That's what the man-machine stands for, Kraftwerk.
Totally Wired, Artists in Electronic Sound. The music of yesterday may never be the same. The music of tomorrow may be sounds we've never heard. We live in an electronic world. These are the sound shapers of our era. Totally Wired.
It's more realistic type of interrelation, or like you said, interface between us and the machines, because we don't put the machines on a higher level or big level or ourselves onto. It's neither glorification of ourselves nor of the machines. I think it's more about a friendship, to get in tune, or a friendship relation with your environment, rather than feel dissociated and always being then you feel completely dissociated from your environment, then you have this negative attitudes all the time.
Ralf Hütter and Florian Schneider joined forces in the late 1960s. From the beginning, their music reflected the industrial environment of Dusseldorf, West Germany, where they lived. Their music is more streamlined and icy now, and parallels the progression from machines to computers. But on their first two records as Kraftwerk, you can hear the factories clanking and belching away.
Well, we have certain sounds also that are very harsh. There's different levels of brutal sounds, more gentle sounds, machine-like sounds, depending on the psychology of these different machines.
Hütter talks about the psychology of machines as if they had feelings, neuroses, and phobias, just like us. It's all part of the Kraftwerk rhetoric that began in 1970 when they first got together. They called their studio Klingklang, which means sound noise. It was an assemblage of electronic odds and ends, much like the classical electronic studios of Otto Luening and Karlheinz Stockhausen.
When we got together our Klingklang studio in 1970, we started with tape recorders and oscillators and feedback and echo chambers, all kinds of tapes and all kinds of things. Basically very simplistic things, because music is just, or sound is just one part of what we do. We are a lot working in instruments, building instruments, most of the things you see we made ourselves, because otherwise we couldn't play it. So it has to be this way for us. There's no other way, because we couldn't go into a shop and say, I want this, I want that, put the money down and say, with this I can play that. We don't find anywhere what we want to do. We have to make it ourselves. So we are very amateurish about the whole thing we make. We don't wait for somebody to make something. We use our own, even if it's not the best, doesn't matter. If we make it our own way, then it's special.
Kraftwerk's music grew with the electronics explosion of the mid-70s. Not only were synthesizers becoming more readily available, but even non-musical devices were making their own electronic sounds.
There are very good instruments everywhere. Airports and telephones and, electronic sounds are all around us, so I feel it very in tune with today's... It's the music of today, there's no question, for me at least.
Today they use the sounds of pocket calculators. Back in 1975, they used the mechanical sound of a car engine, turning the key in the ignition of their international hit, Autobahn.
I have a lot of recordings of different machines. Like on Autobahn we picked up my old Volkswagen, which we recorded, and
Every serious composer and musician in the 20th century has had to find their own definition of what constitutes music. In their manifesto for Musica Futurista, the Italian futurists wanted to bring the machine and the victorious kingdom of electricity into music. Kraftwerk espouses these goals and subscribes to Edgar Varèse's idea that music is the organization of sound.
I think music, as we call it, is just a form of organized sound. So basically we have our studio, it's called Klingklang, that's a German word for sound. That's what we're into, sounds, environmental sounds or musical sounds, anything. We have random notes, we play a couple of... Sometimes we let the machines run for themselves, we just set them up. Or don't set them up, just see how the circuits stimulate themselves, inner feedback, and then they sometimes play some wonderful things.
The Kraftwerk jargon places everything in mechanistic or electronic terms, even their minds and ears. And what goes into those ears is often a direct contradiction to their own mechanized sounds. Kraftwerk often listens to silence. They don't allow any music to be played in concert halls before their performances. And it's been reported that Kraftwerk snips the wires to Muzak systems in elevators that they ride in.
We have like 2 microphones in the ears and 1 cassette recorder in the brain, where we store certain information. But we just want to have a little silence and keep turned down, especially in America, where everything is always music around in elevators, hotels, and everywhere, airports, noise. There's so much noise and so much sound pollution. I think we extremely thoughtful about silence. Tune up your ears and then...
They glorify their image of cold, calculating technoids, moving on stage like robots, and often letting the synthesizers run on automatic, while surrogate models of the band stand motionless above them. According to Hooder, the impetus for their music isn't physical, but cerebral. The only interface that Kraftwerk needs are the glistening knobs, buttons, and computer readouts of their machines.
Well, when we turn the knobs and the switches, and when we touch the sensitive keyboards or the numeric keyboards, the numbers, it's just the same interface. I mean, it's just that these computer instruments, they're much more sensitive than the others. They're not so physical, but more, it takes more thinking to actually play them. And then you get physical maybe by just switching a couple of knobs. But that's just a result of thinking process. Because basically we stand around and turning knobs and switches. And I think the physical side of the music is what comes out of the loudspeakers. Then the energy level, that's more stimulated by the actual... It's more like a sensitive finger ballet that we play on the instruments.
For a group who talks about their music in such intellectual terms and avoids any overt displays of emotion, Kraftwerk has been surprisingly successful at moving bodies across disco floors. Their Man Machine album crossed over into the disco charts and changed the shape of R&B for the next several years.
We do a lot of dancing. Sometimes it's a weekend we go dancing. Discotheques in Europe, we have some... Düsseldorf is not far from Holland or France, so sometimes we travel and then we go to discotheques in Düsseldorf or Paris. So then we dance, and we like mechanistic music with repetitive beat patterns.
We're charging our battery, and now we're full of energy. We are the robots. We are the robots. We are the robots. We are the robots.
Kraftwerk exploit what they believe to be the ambiguity between humans and machines. Instead of being cold and unexpressive, Hooder sees computers and synthesizers as being more sensitive and having a wider range of expression than anything before them. He thinks they've already eliminated the need for conventional instruments.
Because we are not so certain what is human, or what's supposed to be human. I think that's a projection. Our music is very sensitive. The electronic instrumentation is just much more sensitive to... You have a much wider range of expression than with so-called traditional instruments. They're quite outdated today. Everything has been said on those type of instruments. So if you want to make music of today, you better use the instruments of today, I think. Otherwise, it's a museum. And the synthesizer just has the complete sound range, you know. You can have any sound from within the audio range from 20 to 20,000 hertz or something. And so you find also a lot of your own limitations. It doesn't give any preconceived things to hang on to. It doesn't help you to hang on to something. It's just there. It's just like a white piece of paper, and whatever you put on it has to come from yourself. And you have to be much more modest about your own creativity or things and start with very simplistic, basic things. Whereas when you pick up a traditional instrument like a piano, it has already a preset sound. it sounds always like a piano, no matter how good or bad you play. You hit one note, it sounds piano. With the synthesizer, it doesn't do that. You have to make up that one note, and therefore they're very hard to play sometimes.
Kraftwerk's influence has been enormous. Nearly every contemporary electronic artist will cite them as an influence, and they've spawned a whole generation of musicians who use the Kraftwerk vocabulary to make music.
Well, that's just what we have been working in for so many years, and all these amateur bands in Germany. Lots of new young bands coming who start directly now with synthesizers and everything. Also England, France, of course, Italy, new groups coming up making their own records.
It's your hand to compute.